Morning, everyone.
Darren.
Morning. Oh, as you come in, your microphones should all be muted when you come in. So, if I could ask you guys kindly not to unmute them unless we're bringing you in, because with Zoom it can be really good, but if we have lots of background noise, it can be really difficult as well. So hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. If somebody give me a thumbs up. Brilliant. And also you guys, if you haven't got the chat box open, if you go into your settings, you can open up the chat box where you can ask any questions as we go, So we'll still have a few more people just ready to drop in, so we'll give it We'll give it a couple of more minutes before we start, So, and I will bring Gilbert his microphone in because he'll give us a welcome and things, So, good turnout from everyone. So, good effort. We are actually slightly oversubscribed. So this is a good test because it's more than we've hosted on Zoom up to now, so hopefully we'll be okay, So, right, we've got some last minute people coming in, so I'll just admit them first before we start. And Gilbert, I can't see you, but I can on this one. Yep. But I can hear you because I've just brought your microphone in. So brilliant.
There we go. You can see me. Here's my GDI cup of coffee.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I'm on the coffee as well. Kick start for the day. So we've got one more there.
I see some very nice background pics. I like Collins. I've been there when we took that shot. That was actually in our warehouse. So it's a nice one.
Let's have a look. I can't see Colin on the screen. I'm limited to how many people I can actually see on the screen, but that's not a problem. I have got the chat box up. Nice clean Jeep. Yeah, well, it's easy to keep this clean because we're not allowed to go anywhere, and I only live about 2 minutes from here, so I actually walk to work. So it sometimes goes from here outside the door and then comes back in again. And so this afternoon it'll go outside because we have a technical training with the DPF Doctor Network this afternoon, and we're not using this vehicle. It's a different vehicle we're using, so it'll travel about 5 meters today and still be clean when it comes back in, So, but yeah, I like to I like to try and keep it clean, but it's not difficult to do that at the minute, So, but I think we have one more person in the waiting room, and I think that we're good to go, Gilbert. I think that we've got everyone that's certainly. I don't see anyone missing from the list. I'll keep an eye on the waiting room anyway, and I can admit them when we go. So, if you'd like to, start, and then I can take over.
Yeah, I won't keep you too long because the things that you're about to share with us are much more interesting than my message. But no, all I wanted to say is a very warm welcome, and it's actually quite fun and interesting working with this video technology because. It's a good evening to Australia. It's a good afternoon to Singapore. It's a warm welcome from Amsterdam, and welcoming everybody to the JLM Academy in Ashington. And so thank you all very much for tuning in. It's great to see so many familiar faces and also a couple of new ones. And this is the very first time we organize a session like this, like an Ask Me Anything hosted by Darren. And the idea behind it is that in our daily work, we get asked millions of questions that we do not necessarily always have the right answer to. And instead of having a formal training session with a set program, this session is really a low-key, easy access, meant to share knowledge, discuss questions that we all encounter, and we or Darren predominantly is going to try and answer them as good as possible. So very warm welcome. And Darren, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So just following on from that, like I say, there's no format, so it's not a planned training session. I do have some questions that have been sent in advance, so we can go through them, but please do ask questions. Use the chat box. So I have the chat box up on my big screen here, so I can see any questions as they come in. And it will be a case of the more you guys put in, then the more you can take out of this session. You know, there's no point me doing that. So Reginald saying he can't hear anything. Can the rest of you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So what to do, Reginald, if you go to the bottom of your screen where it says audio, it must be a setting on your PC. So if you have a little look at that. Also, don't worry too much if you have a technical glitch and you drop out or anything like that. I am actually recording this session as well, so we'll make that available afterwards. But say that if you use the chat box, if it's something that we need to discuss, we can switch your microphone on and we can bring you in and we can discuss it for everybody. But please don't have a question. Joseph, you can hear my Scotchy voice. It's half Jock, half Geordie, this accent, Joseph. So no, that's good. So, but if you have a question that a customer asks you and you don't quite know the answer, the idea of this is to arm you with those answers for your customers. So please don't sit there with a question that you think maybe, you know, there are no stupid questions. So please ask, and if I don't know the answer, I don't know, but I will do my best to answer all of your questions for you. So what I'll start off with is questions that have been sent in. So I'm dotting between bits of some emails and some last minute ones this morning that Gilbert sent via WhatsApp. So if I'm looking at my phone, I'm not checking text messages, I'm just reading off the questions, you know. So so I'm going to start with my good friend Joseph. He was the first person that sent a question in, so we will start with his question. Now, Joseph asked when the warning light on the dashboard flashes that a DPF was full, is it possible when using a DPF cleaner that the DPF will fill up even more with soot using a DPF cleaner instead of just running the engine at idle for 30 to 40 minutes without a DPF cleaner? It's really important when selling DPF additives to understand the difference between a preventative DPF additive like the DPF Regen Plus, which is designed to assist regeneration and keep it clean, or using, the particulate filter cleaner. It's really important that you supply your customers with the correct product. So this is the product that you would use in this case, Joseph, so the in-tank DPF cleaner. The answer to that is no, it will not cause more soot to build up. It will actually help to reduce that soot. But, you know, it's best not to do it idle. You would go out on an extended road test. They run in the vehicle. It's a bit of a false information that's out on the internet. People tend to get told to run the engine at high RPM, etc., to clear the DPF. That is absolutely not the case. Running an engine at 3,000 RPM stationary for 30 or 40 minutes will do absolutely nothing to clear soot. soot needs to burn at around, over 500 degrees. So that's why during regeneration, we're looking for around 550 degrees. You will not reach that temperature at a high RPM sitting revving the vehicle for 30, 40 minutes. So it's important that by using this product, what will happen is if the vehicle goes into a regeneration, the ECU will still take the temperature in the DPF up to, depending on which brand of vehicle it is, but an average would be about 550, 600 degrees centigrade. So the ECU will still do that in a controlled manner. However, this product will start to burn off the soot at a much lower temperature. So it's a really, really safe product. It doesn't cause any excess ash. It's very, very safe to use in a heavily suited up DPF. So you will not cause any problems at all by using this problem. The cerium platinum mix, which is fantastic. What we would notice in our workshop is when that vehicle goes into regeneration, we'll just get a much, much more successful regeneration. It will be massively more effective because this starts to work at about 150 degrees lower than what you would normally need to burn off that soot. However, most products out there and preventative products, which Gilbert will correct me with the correct chemical mix, but I know it has iron in there, but like say your Regen Plus and your preventative measures are designed to increase exhaust temperature. So it's important, they will leave a slight amount of ash. Ash is minimal, so don't go worrying about it. But it's a totally different product. Now, where you could cause a problem, Joseph, is you have a customer with a blocked DPF with really high pressure. I just have someone else in the waiting room, so I'll admit them in. So if the soot loading is very high, and you put a DPF Regen Plus into there, then the problem is not down to increasing the level of soot, it's temperature. Because a high soot content, a restriction in the exhaust does cause an increase in exhaust temperatures anyway. Imagine you've stuck your hand over the back of the exhaust, it's going to get hot. So if you have a restriction in the exhaust, it's going to get hot. So you do not want to put any sort of additive in there that is designed to increase exhaust temperature. It's a fantastic way to keep a DPF clean. We've used Regen Plus throughout the whole pandemic on our own vehicles, and it's kept the DPF clean. It's absolutely brilliant at doing its job, but it's not designed for a blocked DPF, So does that answer your question clearly, Joseph? Are you happy with that, or do you want to come back with anything else on, while we're discussing that additive,
May I just add something to that, Darren?
Yeah.
And it's a really good question, because this is everyday stuff. What product works, what doesn't, and from a chemical perspective, it's the Regen Plus. So our DPF Assist or Regen Assist product contains iron or iron oxide or ferrocene, and it increases the temperature. And the downside is, you rightfully say, is the ash production as a result. So what we do is we lower the percentage of iron oxide in the Regen Plus, so we don't have an excess ash production. And because we have a low percentage of iron, it automatically affects the effectiveness of the product. So the lower iron we put in, the lower the cleaning result is. And that's exactly why we have two products at JLM. We have the Regen Plus with just enough iron in it to help the car to regenerate. and we have a super strong cleaner, and that is the JLM DPF cleaner, the 375 mil, because that has, like you said, the platinum cerium ingredient, and that is a premium ingredient which leaves little or no ash. So we can put much more of the working ingredient into the additive, and therefore it's super effective. And I may be biased, I'm sure, but therefore I always say this is the best product on the market.
It's why we use JLM as well. You know, we're not tied to, you know, we have a strong relationship now, but you know, we could use anything. We're independent, and for us, it's the whole product range is the best that it can be. You know, it's the best out there. So I agree with that. So a couple of questions come in. I'll answer, Joseph, I'll answer your second question in a moment. Mike from Calamex, Mike has asked there, they were asked if the DPF toolkit will clean the fuel vaporizer on a Ford Transit. I understand the answer is no, but how can you clean the fuel vaporizer? Plus, what exactly does it do, and how does it become dirty? Good question, and I won't need to go far to get you one. So the answer is don't even think about cleaning it. The hole there is minute. It blocks up with carbon, and all the vaporizer does, it assists temperature in the DPF. So it squirts fuel into the DPF. It's a very simple component. It has a hole going straight through. It's not an injector. That you can blow through it, which I can.
Could you please bring it a little bit closer to the camera, Darren?
Yep, no problem. So you should see it better there. So that sits in the exhaust on a Ford vehicle. You can see there, I can blow through this. It's not an injector. Fuel goes in there and it squirts out of the hole in here. And this is just a simple glow plug to heat the fuel up. So that's why it's called a vaporizer, because the glow plug activates and the fuel comes out here as a vapor because it's hot. They're a terrible design because the hole is minute in there and they block up with carbon. There are various reasons why it goes wrong. It's more of people misdiagnose Fords on a daily basis, which is brilliant for us. It's something we go into really in depth with on our DPF training, because you'll find the vaporizer is blocked and you think you've fixed the vehicle, but you haven't, because there are various reasons. So the mechanic needs to start thinking about, why was there excess soot in this area, making it become blocked. So you quite often on a Ford Transit have another reason. It can be a software issue, it could be a condition not met. So the vehicle tends to have not been regenerating very well. But they're really common. We keep these in stock in our workshop. But they don't waste your time cleaning them, because you can strip them down, you can get them going, but then it won't be fully clear and it'll block up again. The only way is probably part of our big success rate with DPFs is fix it properly, don't cut corners. Fix it right, get the customer back on the road, and you don't want to see them next week. Little things like this, starting to clean things and clean things up and stuff like that, it's never going to stay clean. So my advice on there, is don't bother. You'll spend 2 hours trying to get all the carbon out of there. So hopefully that gives you a brief, when people are talking about them, it sits in quite a harsh environment before the DPF, and it just squirts some atomized fuel into there simply to bring the temperature up in the exhaust during regeneration. That's what it does, So Joseph, another question there. Is it okay to use the DPF cleaner together with Diesel Extreme Clean, or is it better to use them one at a time? Absolutely one at a time. So what we'll have to take into consideration is lubrication. So a can of Extreme Clean has enough lubrication in there to go in with a full tank of fuel. It's really important that your customers read the correct dosage on the label and they use it, in the correct manner, because, a high pressure fuel system on a diesel is very fragile and very, very expensive to fix if it goes wrong. So it's lubricated by the fuel that passes through it. So your high pressure fuel pump is lubricated by the diesel fuel going through the component. So you have to be very careful that you don't put too many additives. So this is one of the reasons why I love Extreme Clean, because it has all the working ingredients from multiple products, but it's in the correct package with the correct amount of lubrication, and it's nice and safe to use. So if you put both of them together, there's the lubrication to consider, but also this doesn't have the same ingredients as the DPF cleaner in there. This has a DPF regenerator. I just need to go into the meeting room again. Sorry, we'll allow Dage in there. So, whatever product you're using, you don't want to overdose it. It's actually a huge problem for us in the workshop environment, where work garages and customers have actually overdosed with products. Then you get over temperature and damaged DPF. That's a really, really big problem. Where we get a vehicle in and now the DPF is beyond repair. That's usually when people have put too many additives in. So another tip for there, when your customers are using additives in there as well, is most garages, mechanics will tell customers to use an additive and to go and thrash the car to clear the DPF. That is absolutely the wrong thing to do. So when you sell a product to a customer with a block DPF, the customer should go for a nice steady drive. The perfect engine RPM is around 2000 RPM. Higher RPM with a block DPF is running a huge risk, because you will get too high temperatures if it's extremely blocked. But also, if the DPF's not blocked and they're using a regenerator, if the DPF is fairly clean, a high flow of exhaust gases at high RPM will actually cool the DPF. So you get the opposite effect. So again, it's quite it's quite an involved subject on its own, depending on the condition of the DPF and what's going on. So that the answer in simple terms is drive the car nice and steady at 2000 RPM if you have a DPF problem, no matter whether it's a regeneration problem or a block DPF. It's the safest thing to do, but the vehicle can do its own thing and regenerate much easier at 2000 RPM. So hopefully that's a helpful tip for you. So if you have, so Joseph's asked there, if you want to use both products and have a semi-full DPF, which one do you start with, DPF cleaner or diesel extreme clean? Change your oil before cleaning or after you've used all the fuel with the products? Good question. You should always start with the DPF cleaner if it's a semi-full DPF, because that is the safe product to use. You will not do any harm, any damage at all. So if the customer uses that, then the diesel extreme clean would be a fantastic aftercare product to help clean up everything else, that may be starting to clog up, turbo vanes, EGR, injectors. It gives the fuel system a real good clean. And it also has the product in there to help, assist regeneration as well. So on the following tank of fuel, after using the DPF cleaner, would be the time to use the extreme clean, but not the other way around, because this isn't going to attack a really, a half-blocked DPF. It's going to help, reduce a bit of soot in there and help it regenerate better and stuff like that. But it's the DPF cleaner is what you should use first, you know. Regarding an oil change, do you need to change the oil before cleaning the DPF or after using a DPF product in the tank? That's again very specific to each vehicle. The only reason why you would need to change the oil is if the oil is contaminated with fuel. So your diesel engine oil, I've done a video on this recently, which is on the JLM YouTube channel. So it's worth watching that for a better understanding. But engine oil dilution happens when DPF regeneration is interrupted. So it doesn't happen if regeneration is successful. It is when regeneration is unsuccessful. So for example, if your customer drives around the town, does lots and lots of short journeys, and mid-regeneration, halfway through, the engine is switched off, then that will contribute to oil dilution. If the vehicle is a motorway car and the DPF is able to regenerate, and they're using a preventative measure or extreme clean or something like that, then it wouldn't be necessary. If there is any doubt, then you should advise an oil change. This is why manufacturers advise an oil change on every DPF repair. The reason for that is they have no control over the guy checking the car. And for our guys, we have it as part of our checking procedure, you know. Yeah, go on, Gilbert. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you quite rightfully say it. You mentioned it. Is it safe to say, and this is purely from a commercial perspective, really, not so much from a technical one, but is it safe to say that every car which has a DPF problem is most likely to have contaminated oil? So it's recommended to change the oil, but because it's contaminated, you would need to flush it before you drain it.
If you are given a blanket answer, then you should say yes. But from a technical point of view, for example, if this had something stopping regeneration, like a dead pressure sensor or a dead temperature sensor, it's not going to regenerate, and then the DPF would be blocked because it cannot carry out regeneration. So this vehicle would then have zero oil contamination. However, you as a supplier, a bit like the vehicle manufacturers, this is why they advise change the oil, because you're putting the control. For my guys on my network, it's part of our training, you know, taking into consideration, why are we having a DPF problem? Is the oil contaminated? Should it be changed? So we're trying to offer a higher level of service to our customers. But so if it's been regenerating a lot, then yes, you will have some oil contamination. So you guys, your answer should be to advise an engine oil, an oil flush and an engine oil change, oil and filter, obviously, on every vehicle. That should be the advice given to customers.
And add some Vortec.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point as well. I know we have a question on Vortec to cover, but that is a good point, because we are seeing horrendous problems with a lot of very low mileage vehicles in the UK. Some of the premium brand vehicles out there where they're having engine failures at sort of 25 and 30,000 miles. They're horrendous, you know, but the engine oil interval changes are crazy, you know, 30,000 miles. But then you have DPF regeneration problems and oil dilution. So yes, Vortec on a certainly even more so on a modern vehicle that's doing short journeys. Vortec is a fantastic product. You know, we should cover that now while we're talking about it, really, and then I'll come on to the other questions on the screen. But the Vortec does stay. Gilbert will correct me if I'm wrong here, because it's not something that I use a lot of, but it does coat the metal rather than stay in the oil. Am I correct in saying that, Gilbert?
Yes.
Yeah. So that way it means on cold start, engine startup, you're getting protection all of the time, Also, when you change the oil, there is an amount of it stays behind, but obviously an engine oil flush would reduce the protection. So on your next oil change, you should use another treatment of Vortec. But certainly if you have a modern vehicle and you've just invested, 30 or 40,000 pounds in a vehicle, it's a good way to protect your investment, so it does stay with the metal. And the good thing about the Vortec is it can be used on a new engine. So a lot of oil additives are for worn engines, so and they go in the engine oil and stuff like that. But the Vortec can be used on a brand new engine because it's such small, microscopic, if you like, and it coats the metal, but it doesn't affect any tolerances or anything like that, So that can be used on a brand new engine.
To add to that, Darren, it really is a great product, particularly for new cars, because its properties or characteristics come out best in high temperatures and high pressure.
Yeah,
and that is exactly what's going on with the latest engine technologies, with the how do you call it, the downsized engines, with the turbos and compressors and what have you. Higher temperatures and higher pressure. And the big difference compared to the other products on the market is that the Vortec is completely soluble. So no, how do you call it, hard products, hard parts. It's completely soluble.
Yep. Okay. So no, that's good. So next question on the screen, we'll move on to GDI cleaner. So how does GDI cleaner actually clean the valves when the mixture actually goes direct into combustion chamber? The GDI cleaner is designed to clean the injectors on GDI. Now, long term, as you're probably all aware, that there is a big problem on intake valves because there is no fuel injected onto the intake valve on a GDI. However, a lot of the problems when they start to run dirty do originally stem from poor injection as well. Injectors clog up, they're in a harsh environment. So by cleaning them and keeping them clean, it can help to reduce the amount of buildup, but it won't actually attack the inlet valves. I know that it is something that's in testing at the moment, Gilbert.
Well, got some good news. We only yesterday we defined on the final chemical mix for the aerosol to clean the intake valves on GDIs, because that's a very valid question. I think Ong you posted it.
Yeah.
So I think we hoped we would have it sooner, already next month, but we had some troubles defining the best chemical mixture, but we've completed that process now, so it may take a little bit longer. But I'm happy that we're now defined the chemical mix, and this will be the combination of the two, so the GDI injector cleaner as a fuel additive together with the intake valve cleaning aerosol will be a very strong proposition to offer to workshops. And so of course the products will be sold separately, but we think having the pack, we can offer them as a GDI treatment to the market. So it's been high on our wish list. It's been topping our wish list ever since we had the GDI injector cleaner, and now finally we have defined it, and it's going into production hopefully soon.
I think as well for you guys that an important thing to consider as well, now that you'll have them two products, is the problems with carbon buildup on modern engines is horrendous. If you think Euro 5 diesel vehicles have been problematic, Euro 6 are horrendous. They really are. So there's a real big market for preventing these things happening. So, like you know, on the, when we get the intake aerosol there to go with the the GDI cleaner, that's a good option for workshops. But for workshops to introduce that to the servicing schedule on a GDI would be better for the motorist and also better for you guys, because you're keeping the problems minimal, because there will always come a point, if it's left unchecked and driving for years and years, where a strip down becomes necessary. So a big, you know, for me, things like extreme clean used annually on Euro 6 vehicles, diesels, is a huge preventative measure, because the repair bills are horrendous when they get to the point of needing stripped down. And I think that's a massive opportunity on GDI because of the known inlet valve problems. Euro 6 vehicles where they're running 2 EGR valves now rather than 1, more to go wrong, more expense to fix. So, you know, there's never been a better time to sell high quality additives to keep the problems at bay, you know. So, Thomas, answer your question next. The minimum fuel level content for injector cleaner, extreme clean, DPF clean can be used on 20 litres of diesel. Do you know, I always say this with JLM, it always does what it says on the tin. So if you look on each tin will tell you the fuel level, and you know, it's there for your customers and for you guys. So each product differs. A lot of vehicles will need, you know, a large amount of fuel, 40 to 60 litres of fuel on some products, where the emission reduction treatment can be used in, you know, 20 litres of fuel. But it tells you on the tin, and that's what I tell my guys, you know, leave the science to the scientists. You know, they tell us the fuel quantity and we follow the instructions, you know. So that every one of these cans will tell you on there the minimum level of fuel. So that's the best advice, is stick to the guidelines when it comes to, you know, putting something in the tank, you know.
Could I add a little bit to that, Darren,
Yeah.
please? And I understand the question, because very often people think that if I pour a can of additive into how do you say, low volume fuel, just a few liters, the concentrate of the additive is higher, so the cleaning effect will be a lot bigger. Now that is a misperception. The additives in most of the fuel additive, in most of the products that we offer, are actually designed to work slowly and gradually. And only for the emission reductions treatment, formerly known as the catalytic exhaust cleaner for petrol and diesel, only this particular product is designed to be super effective on very low fuel, to be able to get that cleaning effect for your NCT or MOT. But the chemicals we generally use are designed to work slowly and gradually. Thank you.
Yep, good stuff. That's the other side note with slow and gradual as well. Is a couple of people often ask about, you know, cleaning carbon out too fast. You know, it's like the intake cleaning kit on the diesels. It works slowly. You know, slowly is much better and kinder way of moving carbon deposits. You know, doing it gradually is key for, in my opinion. It's much more effective and safer. You know, so good. Got lots of questions coming in, so I'll keep working through them. We did touch on this, Thomas. That the Bortec, it does make a film coating on the metal surfaces, so it stays with there, but it is advisable to change it on every oil change. Some of it will stay with the metal, but your engine flush will reduce, reduce the protection. So we would advise to use it on every oil change. He also asks, what is the risk of engine flush if it stays in the oil for over 30 minutes or the engine accelerates? Can any carbon deposits clog up an oil filter or canals in the engine? Again, what I would say is use it in the recommended manner is the correct way to do it. So do not advise your customers to put that in the engine oil and go out on road test and rev the engine. However, a huge plus point with the engine oil flush with JLM is it is oil based, so it is safe to run in the engine. But you must be careful if you tell your customers it's okay to do things, because you're not the guy at the vehicle. The mechanic working on the vehicle must use their experience to say, I want to run this for 1 hour. I'm going to do it for longer. In reality, they're now on their own, aren't they? Because they've not used the manufacturer's guidelines. But however, it's not a harmful product. So I don't see it causing a problem running for longer, but we should not advise customers to start, making their own process up. Regarding carbon deposits, again, if a vehicle has traveled, let's say 300,000 kilometers and it's been badly serviced, we tend to see then that, there can be a lot of sludge in the sump pan and things like that. There can be, we see a lot of blocked oil strainers on things like Mazda, for example, So I don't see the engine flush itself being the problem. It's a lack of maintenance. A mechanic should again use their experience. If it's never had an oil flush and it's done, hundreds of thousand miles and it's having oil pressure problems, then I would certainly remove the sump pan, clean the oil pickup strainer, then we would rebuild it and use an engine flush with some new oil and then change it again. It all boils down to there isn't a very straight answer on that regarding things clogging up. If there's enough carbon deposit in there to clog up an oil filter or an oil pickup, then that has already been there through neglect. That is not going to be there on a properly maintained vehicle. So engine flushes for me, if a vehicle comes in with oil dilution from a DPF, then I would use an engine oil flush, good quality oil, and I'd be happy to do that. If a vehicle came in and it had never been serviced for 50,000 miles, then I would have to really evaluate that car to say, do I need to strip that down to be safe? So it's a little bit difficult one to answer, but that wouldn't be a fault of the product. It would be a fault of lack of maintenance on the vehicle. Hopefully that answers that and sort of makes sense, So Roland, good question there about the diesel DPF spray versus the DPF toolkit, the J02230. A lot of the factors are a little reluctant to upsell the toolkit. How I break things down in my own workshop, I use either the in-tank additives or I use the DPF toolkit, the clean and flush, because it's so much more powerful and I can clean anything with that. However, the DPF spray is not as strong a product as the clean and flush. It's a great product for, say, a mobile mechanic that doesn't carry a compressor, so they can go out and they can clear a blocked DPF. But there will become a point where the blockage is too severe and that may not fully clean it, where the DPF clean and flush will, because it's a stronger product. So for me, the easiest way to describe it, the DPF spray is somewhere in the middle, in between using the in-tank additive and needing the professional DPF toolkit. That's how I would describe it personally. That's a good product for somewhere in the middle. But for me, the advantage of the J02230, the DPF clean and flush, is that there is nothing better So I use that in my workshop because no matter how severe the blockage is, we get a lot of vehicles coming to us that don't even run. You know, so that stuff there is nothing better than that product. So for me, that's where you would step up to there if it's an extremely blocked DPF. Again, it's safe to use, nice low temperatures and stuff like that. You know, so possibly the aerosol one and the motor factors might be quite easy to sell because it's comparable with a lot of other aerosol products out there. It's maybe at the right price point, and in truth, it'll clean most marginally blocked DPFs that a garage will see. Most DPFs that come into you know, tend to be marginally blocked. You know, so it's an excellent product for that. But for us, we see the ones that people can't fix, and I need the best product, which is the clean and flush. So next question on here. 1 bottle of engine oil flushes for 5 litres of oil. How many cars have more than 5 litres? Personally, if the vehicle holds, if the vehicle holds 5.5 litres or 6 litres of oil, I still think that the 1 bottle is sufficient, you know. But obviously, you wouldn't do any harm, like you said, Joseph. If it was, say, 8 litres of oil, then you could advise using, 1.5, tins of that. You know, that wouldn't do you any harm, you know. But most passenger cars are around the 5 litres or maybe 5.5, 5.7. So there may be a sales opportunity there to say it's over 5 litres, so you need more than 1 flush. I think from a workshop point of view, and if I have my mechanics hat on, I would think that 99% of mechanics would say, no, I only want 1 tin of engine flush. I think that's the way they would work, you know. But you certainly, if you can sell two cans to them instead of 1, then brilliant, you know. So how many bottles, Reginald's asking, how many bottles of stop smoke should one use for cars that consume more than 5 litres of oil? Do you mean like its oil capacity is more than 5 litres, or it's actually burning more than 5 litres of oil between oil changes? Maybe if you could elaborate on that. And can a mobile mechanic use more than 1 can of DPF spray if it's extremely blocked? That is actually a very, very good question. My advice on DPF problems: do not start, if you haven't used the product again, start thinking about why hasn't it been successful, because you know, DPF problems can on a good day be very easy to fix, but on a bad day things can go wrong very, very quickly, and you end up with a melted DPF or a non-runner. So from my personal experience, all of our workshops that we work with, we say no, do not clean it twice. If you've not cleaned it successfully in 1 attempt, you know, unless you need to be really experienced from that point on to really be looking at pressures and temperatures and lots of things going on. And so yes, from a sales point of view, there is nothing wrong with them doing it twice, but I would say after an extended road test. However, the likelihood is that they are going to phone you up and say, I've done this job twice and it is still blocked, because they may have a damaged DPF, so there may be another reason why, if it's not cleaned in 1 attempt, it may be that it has been extremely blocked. But you have to be careful, because they could end up damaging the DPF if they're not really understanding what's going on in there, you know. So there's a lot of parameters that we watch, and just through experience, you know, we're building up a mental picture of what's happening in that DPF based on what temperature sensors are doing and what pressures, you know, is it going up when it should be coming down. So it's quite, you know, quite a deep subject. So you need to be careful saying to people, clean it 2 times or 3 times. Generally, something's wrong in there if it's not cleaning straight away. I think there's a JLM video on the YouTube channel where we had a Nissan Qashqai with almost 4,000 millibar of pressure at idle. We've broke that record now, and we've now seen almost 5,000 millibar, but that still only required clean once. Okay, so for me, be careful. It's selling that other can may cause a problem because the customer may come back to you, you know, and if they're not experienced enough to work out there, then, you know, maybe, you know, certainly in the for the guys in here in the UK and Ireland, you know, we have a number of workshops there. I know Mike does this, you know, Mike at Casey, if he has a customer there and they hit a point where he knows they're struggling, he will recommend that they talk to one of our guys and they can refer the vehicle in, and we can make sure that, you know, we can work out what's going on, you know. The guys around the globe, we are announcing soon, we are launching our DPF training globally soon. So that's another thing. If you have workshops that are busy with DPFs and they're blaming the product is fantastic. It's combining a fantastic product with a lot of knowledge that is a real key to success. So get in touch if you have customers having problems, and we're making offer some help, you know. But don't, for my advice, don't start cleaning a DPF 2 or 3 times, you know. So the product itself isn't the problem. The problem is there's a reason why you're having to do it 2 or 3 times. Okay. So, right. Thomas, good question there. What decarbonisation is more effective, hydrogen, HHO, or chemical, the JLM 2-step extreme clean? Any experiences? Yes, actually I have. I've done quite a lot of work with HHO over the years, probably going back about 12 years with various manufacturers of HHO, where we're trying to alter fueling because, you know, they were trying to, you know, have permanently installed HHO kits and stuff like that. There's a lot of false information out there. Again, it's one of the things JLM, they do that says on the tin, but they don't make false information up, you know. HHO works a bit like what Ong said earlier about the GDI cleaner. It only works from the combustion chamber. It's squirted into the combustion chamber. So HHO only has an effect once it's ignited. So the way you should think of HHO as a fuel accelerator, it burns everything in the combustion chamber. So it's a great way of cleaning up the combustion chamber. What's left behind from HHO when it burns is water, and water turns to steam. So it does have, in effect, a bit of a steam cleaning effect after combustion. But obviously there's a limitation to how much of that then finds its way back through EGR and stuff like that. But, you know, I see a lot of claims out there that will clean intakes up, for example. When the gas is introduced at the air intake, between there and the combustion chamber, it cannot clean anything. It can't do anything until it is combusted. Simple fact. It doesn't do anything till it's combusted. It's just a gas passing through your intake and nothing more. It has a slight after effect when, you know, with the steam, you know, the water and steam that is left over has a slight benefit. You know, if you used it all of the time, then it would stop carbon buildup completely. because you would have complete combustion, you know. So so it has its place. It will help to reduce emissions because it'll help clean up combustion chamber and stuff like that. I do not believe it is effective at anything to do with, you know, the hot side of the turbo, sticky turbo vanes, or DPFs. It also can clean carbon very, very quickly. So if you have a really dirty combustion chamber, it can actually fill that DPF up. This is something we see quite often where the local mobile carbon cleaning guy goes out, does a carbon clean, and then the DPF is blocked because it moves it quite quickly, you know. So comparing that with the intake Extreme Clean Toolkit, which goes directly onto the air intake, that chemical is cleaning all the way through. So it's, you know, for me, and I actually have, so this isn't a criticism of an HHO machine because I actually have one in my workshop and I quite often use it if a vehicle's in for, say, you know, we still do a little bit of engine tuning. So someone comes in and they want a bit more power from the vehicle and we're going to, you know, give it a tweak. I'll quite often run it on the HHO machine as a bit of a preventative measure and a good cleanup. So this isn't a criticism of that because it does work and it does have its place in the market. However, if I had a vehicle came in and I had something like, you know, turbo vanes sticking, then that's not going to be a problem solver, anything like this toolkit is, because the two-step procedure on this, the critical thing is that the chemical does not combust and it does not compress. So this is why it's a slow process. The advantage of that, it's a very, very technical chemical. The advantage of that, you know, if you're a guy in the workshop and you have a sticky turbo, you need that product still to be active when it reaches the turbo. So that still has the same cleaning effect once it gets to the turbo on the hot side as it does when it goes in the intake, because it does not compress and it does not combust. So it's much, much stronger, much more effective, but it's also much slower. You slow the process down and you do not experience any DPF blockages either, you know. So for me, they're two completely, this is a tool that's a problem solver. And for me, HHO is more of a preventative measure. It will help to reduce emissions a bit if they're slightly high. But if you get into the repair process, then for me, the chemical is a much, much better way of doing things, you know. So hopefully that's answered that question for you, you know. So I'm going to just look through my other questions as well. So I have some more questions on here. One question that was asked on the group that you know that we can cover, there was a question regarding AdBlue and whether JLM looked at an additive for that. You may well get asked this, but that is something that I said I would answer in this session as well. A lot of you guys may also supply AdBlue or stock AdBlue of various different manufacturers, you know. It's important to test the quality of the AdBlue, because the biggest problem we see in the UK, I believe the article that was shared on the group was very misleading. The biggest problem we see is poor quality AdBlue. It must be stored correctly. You know, you go to the fuel station and it's stored outside in direct sunlight. That's not how it's supposed to be stored. So, you know, the UV light does have an effect on it. And when we do testing from random petrol station forecourts and we test it, we never get a good result, you know. So it's not necessarily the brand of it, you know. You can have the same brand and stored in 3 locations, and you know, it may be okay in one and not in the others, but it's important to test the brand of AdBlue that you're using with a refractometer. So we do that on every bit of AdBlue that we use, and most of the problems we see in the real world with vehicles are caused by things like, you know, the AdBlue injector is stuck open because of crystallization and stuff like that. So AdBlue injector sticking open is a big problem, rather than it being injected. You know, there was an article about an additive saying that when it's injected at low temperature, it crystallizes. The vehicle, if you take this Toyota Hilux sitting here now, this will not inject AdBlue below its correct temperature. It's not designed to. So although injecting AdBlue at 100 degrees exhaust temperature would cause you a problem, the vehicle is not going to do that. Okay, so I thought that was good for me. We've discussed this previously, you know, myself and Gilbert, when we've been talking about AdBlue and things like that. But the answer is, you know, if you're selling AdBlue or you stock it, just make sure it's of a good quality and it's stored correctly, and that will minimize. There are software problems and things like that, but additives that are claiming it helps when AdBlue is injected at low temperature is false, because the vehicle will not inject it if it is not up to operating temperature. Okay, so Brian, on the HGV plant side of the market, what is recommended for a slightly blocked DPF and a completely blocked DPF? Also, a lot of HGV and plant mechanics are using power washers and soap. Power washers are not a good idea. I don't have any hands-on experience with HGV and plant. We work on passenger cars and vans, you know. But the biggest problem with an HGV DPF is its physical size. So, you know, you'd have to take that into consideration. Obviously, there is, if I have got one here, if not, I will be back in 1 second. So you have the DPF cleaner heavy duty, which goes into the fuel tank. That's what options for a larger DPF, because then at least it's going through the fuel system, and it's, you know, it's getting to every part of the DPF. So that would be a product for it. But if you were using the DPF clean and flush, for example, you know, the answer is I don't know. The physical size of it is potentially the problem. You know, it's not something that we do or offer as a service. So, you know, I'll be wrong to answer that, whether you could use a clean and flush on maybe a smaller truck. You know, I know some of our guys do, you know, some small sort of, you know, 7.5 ton trucks and things like that, and they've used the DPF toolkit on there. But on large HGV stuff, I think it may be difficult because of the you know, the vast size of the actual DPF. Using soap and pressure washers, you know, we see a lot of damaged DPFs. We've seen some where people have been too close to the monolith with a pressure washer and stuff like that, you know. So it's not a method that I would certainly use. Soap would really depend on, does it have any effect on temperature? You know, I see, you know, even on the car market, I see people using acid and all sorts of stuff, and it's no wonder that we see damaged DPFs. I think that, you know, if it's an HGV, then, you know, if it's too large to use like the clean and flush, then, you know, send it off for cleaning off vehicle, you know, is probably the safe answer, you know. So it's certainly using jet washers and things like that kind of horrifies me, to be honest, because we see the damage caused when people aren't doing the job properly, you know. So next question, Joseph. So is it okay for a customer who use the DPF cleaner first to use the Regen Plus, the next tank fill up. No, that's absolutely fine, Joseph, and we do this a lot. So obviously, people come to us with a DPF problem, we'll repair it, and as an aftercare, people will ask, "Is there anything I can do to help keep the DPF clean?" You could use, the Regen Plus on every tank if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. Regen Plus, it will leave a small amount of ash, but it is very, very small. It's not something that's going to cause you a problem over like a reasonable, sort of time scale. So it would be something that would take years to actually become a problem. So we normally advise customers every 2 to 3 tanks. At the moment, through the pandemic, I've been using Regen Plus on my wife's car every other tank. So I've filled up once with no additive. Next time I use the additive. Next time I don't. But there wouldn't be any harm to using it each time. It would be fine. So in normal driving conditions, we normally recommend every sort of 3,000 miles or so to use a Regen Plus. But we've reduced that recommendation during the pandemic because obviously, during the pandemic, it's much more difficult for people to go for a long journey. And I know certainly here locally, the advice is not to travel outside of your local area. So people aren't going for like a random drive out or to visit family. So at the moment during the pandemic is the perfect time to sell Regen Plus to help prevent DPF problems. It's a perfect time for that. So next question. In Ghana, the weather is relatively warm, but some cars use 020 engine oil. But since we don't have that grade, can I suggest 530 for them? So is it not possible to source that, or do you mean because there isn't a JLM 020 grade? I'm not quite sure. Like if it's not, I would say, I go on. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Good question. As an answer to the question, I think always stay with the recommended grade by the car manufacturer. And second, we will have a 0W20 available from JLM in Q2. So thank you for your question, Reginald. Very happy with that one. We'll have a solution shortly. Yeah,
but like Gilbert's absolutely right there. That then you should not use the incorrect grade of engine oil. Especially on modern vehicles are so fragile. The cars are not so reliable as what they used to be. You can buy a 3-year-old vehicle now with lots and lots of major problems. It's really important, and something to consider is most new vehicles, they went back to time and chains rather than time and belts as well. So you're using the incorrect engine oil. It would almost certainly cause problems. So, Joseph, is it okay for DIY people to combine the DPF cleaner with the DPF spray? So, no harm, and because the DPF cleaner works over a longer time scale, so there's no harm in using that in the tank and using the DPF spray, because once you've used the DPF spray and you've went on road test, that's that chemical gone. The DPF spray is gone. It's out. It's out of the exhaust. So there would be no harm to using the DPF cleaner in the tank. Like I say, with a DPF cleaner, the huge plus point for this is you will not ever do any damage or harm to the DPF. So having that in the tank along with it is not a problem. So, next question. Once again, about minimum fuel content for additives, mostly on JLM cans, is written treats up to 70 litres. So this is a maximum mixture. So it will normally give you an indication of a minimum. It usually give you a minimum quantity as well. It will normally be 40 to 60 or 40 to 70 litres. I think I'm right in saying that's on everything. Certainly when I've looked, it always gives you a minimum guideline. Apart from so if a vehicle has a 50 litres tank, you use a full tank on a 50 litres tank would be absolutely fine, but you would not use it on a half tank or a quarter of a tank, because that would be too small amount of fuel, So next,
Yeah.
diesel, yeah.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
The answer to many is quite self-explanatory, and but we could probably improve this wording on our labels. On some products, it's more detailed than others. So we'll look at the wording on the cans.
Yeah.
To better specify it.
Yeah, it could maybe be moved out to the front or something like that, I suppose, so it's maybe on the front of the label instead of the back or something like that. But
yeah, that's something we can improve on. So
I think the key to it would be if your customer isn't sure, or you're not sure why the customer is using the product, then you should advise a full tank of fuel, unless it is the emission reduction treatment, because that can be used with as little as 20 litres. So if everything else, so question there on the diesel intake extreme cleaner, would this release a locked turbo? We've had a really, really good success rate with turbo problems with the intake extreme clean, and also the in-tank turbo cleaner or extreme clean. We have really good results with that. However, like anything, if it has been driven for long enough and it is mechanically worn and it has some grooves worn inside the turbo, and that's what's causing the vanes to stick, then nothing is going to fix it. It needs a new turbo. However, if it is a problem caused by carbon buildup, then this is fantastic. And we base that on the real results there. Again, you need your workshop to ask why do they have a turbo problem. We see so many vehicles with a new turbo fitted, and it is not the turbo that is at fault. It's a control problem or a vacuum problem or something like that. So what we would do is we would go and record engine data, and we would look at that and say, yes, the turbo problem is caused by sticking turbo vanes. So we would then use this treatment and then go out and repeat the same process, and we see fantastic results with this. Again, if it's marginal, part of our diagnostic process is to record turbo data on a lot of vehicles, even when they do not have a warning light on. So they are not registering a fault, and we quite often see early signs of sticking turbos. And in that case, I will either use extreme clean or the turbo cleaner, so we will do that to free up sticky turbo vanes. If it's at the point where we have where if we have a point where it's going into limp mode because of it, then I would escalate that up to using the intake extreme clean toolkit, So what is the start to finish time frame are we looking at using this tool? Now that's actually a really good question, because people tend to struggle a little bit with this tool, and it's very, very simple to use. It's so easy to use that actually Mike used this tool when he was up here. That's how easy it is, Mike, isn't it? So I'm fishing for a little bit of abuse back off Mike here, by the way. So but it's the key to this is I allow around 2 hours for using this kit. What happens is some people attach this kit I'll bring this in closer. So what happens, some people will set this kit up, hang it under the bonnet, and you open the tap here to adjust the flow. You'll adjust the flow on this, and then people will stand and watch it and stand there for 2 hours, you know, looking at the tool, and it seems like it takes a long time, or they'll go off and they won't come back and check the flow. You need to tweak that flow, especially through the first part of the process, possibly every sort of 5 or 10 minutes, you know, just come and tweak that open a little bit more as the air pressure drops a little bit. But it is not necessary. It's such a slow, safe process. It's the most non-dramatic intake tool you'll ever use. You know, the vehicle is idle, that's set up. The flow is very, very slow. The amount of chemical being injected is very, very small, and the engine just idles perfectly normal. So for me, I would have this hooked up within earshot, obviously, and I would go and tweak the flow, and I would do another job while it's going. So it's not necessarily suitable for a mobile guy that only has one job to do, but it shouldn't take any more than 2 hours, including road testing it. I've heard of cases where people have took 3 and 4 hours. If that's the case, you're not adjusting the flow on the toolkit. Very, very simple. Just go back and check your flow now and again, but it's not necessary to stand and look at this for 2 hours. But so as a time scale, if you've got a workshop using this and they say it takes 3 to 4 hours, then it's you know, it's a guy at the other end of the tool, unfortunately, that's you know, like anything really. If you've got an experienced mechanic using the tool, they need to apply a little bit of common sense and just you know, tweak the flow a little bit. However, occasionally common sense is not so common, to quote D. Blick, you know. So love that phrase, but it's true, you know. So 2 hours maximum. I've never took any longer than that on all of them that we've done, you know. So Mike is asking there, when using a mixed emission reduction treatment, formerly catalytic exhaust cleaner, after an emissions test fail, how long do you suggest driving it before attempting a retest? So again, that's a little bit, I'm going to use an example here of a vehicle, and it was a petrol, and we rarely see petrol vehicles here, but it failed its emissions test. And what we would normally do, it depends on how high that is really, how far out, you know, how far has it failed by. So if the emissions are massively high, you may need to, you know, drive it a little bit further. But in most cases, you know, because this works very, very quickly, so whether it's a petrol or diesel, it either has a high content of octane booster or in a diesel cetane booster. So it works right from the off to clean up the combustion. So obviously the rest of the process happens over that, you know, tank of fuel or the 20 or 30 litres of fuel. So in most cases, it is enough to put that treatment in with a slightly lower fuel level of maybe 20 to 30 litres and go and give the car a 20-minute road test before you retest. And if it's been, you know, your average emissions failure is not crazily high, you know, and that will bring most of them into line in that sort of time scale. However, the one I had recently on this petrol engine, it was on a VW, notoriously bad for carbon buildup and stuff like that. So the guy went back for his retest the same day. We had about 30 litres of fuel in the car. He went for a 20-minute drive. He went back and it still failed, but only just. It had brought it down, but not far enough. So I just suggested to my customer, okay, top up the tank of fuel and go and do a couple of 100 miles. So he'd done around 200 miles over that weekend, went back for his retest on the Monday and the car passed. So again, it's a little bit of a how long, big is a piece of string. it depends on how bad it is and how you know how high the emissions are. On a diesel vehicle, again, everyone works in the UK. They work off the plated emissions, so that's brought the emissions level right down on a diesel. So in most cases, an in-tank additive is going to be sufficient. However, if the emissions reading is crazily high, we would use the intake extreme kit, So we would use this on the vehicle and then give it a good 20-minute road test and then resubmit it. We've had fantastic results with this. We would also use an in-tank additive to go along with this, So emissions reduction treatment or something like that, So, but petrol is becoming as much of a problem as diesel. So your market for additives, although traditionally has been a bigger problem with diesels and stuff like that, modern petrol vehicles are equally as bad now. We did. There was another question that came in actually. You think all new, different depending on what market you're in different countries, but in Europe now, all new petrol vehicles have GPF fitted to them, so gasoline particle filter. So you've got the equivalent of a DPF on every new petrol vehicle. That's here and now. We are already hearing of problems with them, but at the moment they're being taken care of under warranty in the dealer networks. But this is why, obviously, when we have our regular get-togethers behind the scenes with Gilbert and the team there, we discussed GPF probably 2 or 3 years ago now, I would think, because we're always looking at what's coming in the future. Now, them problems, GPF problems, aren't really in the aftermarket yet, but they are coming, So a good selling point there, certainly, someone buying a new petrol vehicle now should be looking at, regularly using emission reduction treatment or GDI cleaner and stuff like that. And maybe once a year, use the GPF cleaner, just to give everything. And that, rather than wait until the problems happen, that's better for you guys because you're selling regular preventative maintenance products, but it's also better for the end user. The customer is better regularly using a few cans of additive throughout the year rather than coming to us and having a repair bill for over £1,000. Emissions related problems on modern vehicles are not cheap to fix. People are normally getting a repair bill of, if they're lucky, maybe, £400, £500, £600, but it can occasionally be up into the thousands of pounds, So, so preventative measures. But I spent a little bit of time doing some R&D a couple of months ago on GPF. We had a brand new vehicle because for us, if we don't know how a healthy vehicle works, then how do I know how to fix it? So for us, working out how a good vehicle works is key to everything we do. So that's very much early stages. Our diesel training that we deliver is based on thousands and thousands of hours of experience and R&D, driving vehicles, fixing vehicles. So I'm only at the starting point with GPF. So I don't have all the answers. It will also be a separate subject, but the good thing is we spent 2 days just driving, 2 of us driving and logging engine data and things. And I can tell you on this 2020 model at the time, BMW, there are flaws in the system. And people think that we won't see GPF problems. We may not see as many as diesels, but we will 100% see GPF problems over the next 2 to 3 years. There are flaws in the system, in the software and how it works. It is not perfect, certainly on the BMW, but the German brands are great for business, BMW, Mercedes, VW, Audi, and stuff like that. The biggest problematic vehicles with emissions related problems, So, so that's good for us guys. We'll have cars to fix and you'll have lots of products to sell. So, the general opinion in the trade and workshops when I see on a lot of automotive groups and things and forums, people think that we won't get problems with petrol. But if we come back and have this conversation in 3 years, you can answer the question there. You will be getting asked for products because you will 100% see problems. You know, we're maybe 2 or 3 years away from when it's, you know, every day, but it will come. You know, so I think we have answered.
Got one.
Yeah. Okay. Go on. Yeah.
Sorry about that, Darren.
No.
No, there is one question from Thomas, was about the diesel extreme clean treatment, whether or not it would work on a petrol vehicle.
Ah, right.
And I know you've been doing some stuff there, so maybe you can share that with us.
I did send Gilbert a short video a few months ago of me using that tool on a petrol vehicle. So I took full responsibility myself, and it was actually my daughter's car. But I wanted to experiment with it, and the React Gilbert, I sent him a video and he said, "Oh my God." And I said, "It's okay, it's still alive." But I can say the results were brilliant, because as an experiment, I did not tell my daughter that I was doing anything to her car. You know, she's 19 years old and she drives far too fast. So I knew if the car performed better, that she would notice. So, you know, while she was at university, I took her car and I carried out the intake clean on it. It's a Citroen DS3. So they do suffer a bit of carbon buildup. The car's down 80,000 miles. And I guess, I thought if I break it, I've got to fix the car regardless anyway, so I might as well experiment on it. And the procedure, the process is something we need to work on, because it's not so easy to do on a petrol. Because if you know, you're putting a liquid into there, and if the ECU detects a slight misfire, it will shut down the cylinder, it'll switch the injector off. So the process needs tweaking, but the results were, the difference to drive that car was superb. The throttle response, it was night and day. So I parked the car back up and I said nothing. So Ellie come back, used her car. She normally comes back at a weekend and uses her car. So she goes tearing off in the car. And when she come back, she said, "What have you done to my car?" I went, "What do you mean?" She says, it's you know, it's like you put Red Bull, is how she described it. She says, "It's like it has Red Bull in the tank." So I went, "All right, are you sure?" And she went, "Yeah, you've done something, because pulling off roundabouts, it's really zippy now." You know, and she's not technical, she's not, and that took out any, because people always say you have a placebo effect and stuff like that. So that is why I done it. When I drove the car, it was a real noticeable improvement in how it drove, you know. But the good thing is, the car is drove now for, you know, that possibly 3 months ago, Gilbert, that possibly 3 or 4 months ago, maybe. It has to be, because they've been sent home from university for 3 months or so. So the car is driving problem free. It's still driving really, really lovely. The fuel economy is better and stuff like that. So that was a real good experiment, and I think that there is a market for that on petrol vehicles, but you need to be, at this moment in time, if it's quite an experienced mechanic and they'll tweak the process themselves, then I think they will be okay to use it. You know, I had to do it at a much higher RPM on the petrol to avoid the misfires and stuff like that. But I do plan, we don't see many petrol cars here, but I do plan on doing a bit more experimenting on that. So that's good news, because it certainly worked, you know. So Ronan, we are encouraging factors to sell the DPF fluid to refill various fluid bags on Citroen, but a lot are reluctant, as the dealers are advising to change the bags, saying the bags will burst. Yes, Ron, share the YouTube. We judge it on each vehicle again. You know, if it's been in a harsh environment and the bag's split, it may be that it's been apart in the past and it's not been fully secured in, and there's dust and dirt ingress getting in there. But in general, when you take the bag out of there, probably 80–90% of them, it's fairly clean in there, and it isn't full of dust and grit and stuff like that, and the bag is perfectly serviceable. So we keep a couple of bags in stock, but it's rare that we replace one. You know, we fill most of them up. But the key is, in a good way, the reason for sharing that video, Ronan, is not to overfill the bag. You need to fill it because it needs a correct capacity, but don't go so it's like expanded out really tight, because then, you know, when they're fiddling around and putting the bag back in, it's putting excess pressure on the bag, you know. So absolutely nothing wrong with filling the bag, but they would know if it's leaking. You know, there'll be signs, there'll be visible signs of it leaking, or it takes 10 minutes to remove the bag to have a little check first, you know. But certainly share that, and if the bag's good and it's a nice clean environment, then it's going to be okay. The tank, if you like, that the bag sits inside splits in two, and they have like some securing clips. So maybe if it's been driving with one of them clips not fully home, that would allow dirt ingress in there, because you know, we do see them split, you know, but it's generally a bit dirtier in there when they are, you know. So hopefully that makes sense, because it's much cheaper as well to buy the DPF refill fluid and fill the bag. And having this on the shelf there means if a customer comes into mine, you don't know till you see the car whether it has a tank or a bag, because sometimes the same model of vehicle could have either. So for us, we get it in, we look at it, and if it's a bag and the bag is okay, we fill it up. I can say that I've never filled a bag and had the car come back with a split one. Okay, so for me, it's a fairly safe, as long as you apply common sense and don't overfill the bag. Okay, so any other questions, Gilbert? Oh, your microphone's off. Sorry.
Yeah, if I may just add to the bag question from Ronan and the YouTube videos, we just launched new videos on topping up the bags and the reservoirs, and because now, as of last week or the week before, we now include a new cap with a small air hole in it. And the plug is in there, but if you take out the little plug, and it's in the video, but then the filling of the bag and or the reservoir goes much faster. So that's a small improvement, but a very, very practical advantage for the technician. Now the topping up process goes a lot faster, so that's it's very convenient for them.
I've got one here, so I'll show them actually. Bring this into the camera, so you should all can see there the small little pintle on there. So pull that out. You may not can see on the video because it's quite a small hole, but that little air hole is not a small improvement. I would say it's a huge improvement, because that's the biggest complaint, is it takes a long time for it to fill up, you know. So connect it all up, take out the little insert there, and you know the fluid can flow much faster, you know. So that's another big positive. But like Gilbert says, that's covered on the new video, so you'll see on there that you know, it's much easier to do the job now, you know. So is there any more questions that anybody has while we're here? We've went through everything that's on the screen up to now, and everything that's coming via email, you know, before the session. So I don't think there's anything else. So I'll give it a minute to. Right, Ong is asking a clarification on the GDI cleaner. Is the main aim of the GDI cleaner is for the injectors? How different is that compared to the injector cleaner? That's a good question, Ong, and we'll bring Gilbert in on this a little bit as well. But it is a completely different formula. What you'll find is, speaking to workshops, injector cleaners have traditionally been very unsuccessful on GDI injectors. So what they've required removing from the vehicle and cleaned in like a specialist machine. So a normal injector cleaner would not, unclog a GDI injector. They do get very, very badly clogged. But I know that it's not just a case of the same ingredient but a bit stronger. The product is pure. It has been formulated specifically for GDI injectors. But maybe Gilbert might can elaborate on that a little from a JLM sort of perspective. So.
Yeah, well, the GDI, the typical GDI deposits are much tougher, more harsh, more difficult to clean. And so with the common injector cleaners or fuel system cleaners, there may be some cleaning effect, but only little. And the GDI injector cleaner is specifically formulated to attack exactly what's the right word in English? But let's say the tougher, the harder to clean deposits.
Yeah, it's the same way on the the intake valves and things like that. It's really rock solid, the carbon deposits on the GDIs. So hopefully that clears things up. But the results, I suppose, like everything, the proof is in the pudding. And there are also some results that Gilbert shared a little while ago that one of our guys on our network done some testing on his dyno, on his rolling road, and the improvements were remarkable. So that's real world improvement if it didn't clean them up, but you wouldn't have seen that with a normal injector cleaner.
Yeah, and it's good to understand that it's with GDI, it's not only the injector tip or the nozzle, but it's also the inside of the GDI injector itself. If it switches off and there is a strong or a sudden stop of the vehicle due to the big temperature difference, the petrol which is in the injector seems to cause a lot of deposits at that moment. So it's not only the injector tips, it's also the inside of the injector.
Good stuff. So hopefully that's elaborated on things a little bit. So everybody happy. The good thing is we're not having people in the room. None of you can throw objects if you're not happy. So I suppose if you're all smiling, I'm smiling there, so that's a good sign. So but hopefully everybody's got some answers and helped you guys. So thank you for that, Joseph. So the idea is just to help you guys understand what you do with JLM a bit more and stuff like that. So I will upload a recording of this. I'll save it and I will ping it over to Gilbert, and he can, whether he email or the WhatsApp group or whatever. So we will save the recording of this and upload it. But I think if everyone's happy now, I think that I think we've sort of covered every question, and I think we're pretty much wrapped up now. I think. Yeah.
Well, Darren, I think it's safe to say on behalf of everybody who joined, super interesting, and I think you managed to keep our attention for well over 1.5 hours. So I think apart from you sharing great knowledge, we have proved to be excellent students. But no, lots of great info and lots of, also for me, new stuff and some background info, some real life from the workshop info, which should make all of us more comfortable in working with our product. So Darren, thank you very much, and all the guys and girls.
Good stuff. And
thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you in real life again sometime in the future when normality, you know. So you know, so but no, that's cool. So I shall end this now, and we'll hopefully see you all again the next time. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.